Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in with us. I am Taylor Wyatt and this is App Strategy with MotionMobs. Today we're going to talk to you about something we get questions about in the office all of the time, and that is NDAs. So when we're working with new clients and they're bringing a new application product to us and asking us to consult or to do development work on it, a common question that always comes up is how can they protect their idea? How can they be certain when they're talking to our team or anyone else that their ideas and trade secrets are protected? And so we get a lot of questions about NDAs and a lot of questions about signing them very early in the process before, of course, we know anything about the idea or sometimes before we know anything about the company or the person. And really, today we're going to talk about three tips on NDAs, or really more three things that we consider when we're going through that process or talking to a new customer. We completely understand that everyone wants to protect their idea. They've spent a lot of time on it. It's really close and near and dear to them. But we also think that competition is a really good thing. We think that competition to an idea or a company is a lot of what drives products to be better and what drives demand for them. If you have an idea that no one's ever tried to solve before, or if you have an idea that there's nothing like it on the market and there's not a market for it, obviously that's a bad thing. You really want your product to have huge market potential, and you want there to be competition in your business. It doesn't have to be direct competition, but you want someone else out there who's recognized this is a problem and someone should provide a solution to it. So we take that approach with all of our ideas, and we also, as a consulting firm, really want trust very early in the process. We want to build a relationship with our clients, and we want that to work both ways. So we're never going to discuss ideas outside of the office or with anyone else. But we also don't want to sign a NDA that someone's downloaded offline that is really not related to a specific product or business in any way. It's just simply an NDA saying don't discuss any of our ideas with anybody else in my industry. And that's really difficult for a consulting firm that really interacts with a lot of projects and a lot of ideas, because we have a lot of clients in the same industry. We do not have clients that are direct competitors to each other, but we have a lot of clients for example, that are nonprofits or that are education-based. We have clients that all work that both work in utilities. And so we really need to be able to continue to interact with companies in the same industry and still keep any conversations or ideas private. So starting with those three things that usually come up when we're talking about NDAs. The first is when we have somebody come in and they're immediately starting this process with us, and the first question is, I want to talk to you, please sign this NDA, or can you provide an NDA? And our pushback is usually, we need to understand more about your project. We need there to be trust in this process. And if the process is going to start with us signing an NDA on a product that you haven't started building yet, then that's a big red flag and a concern for us. We want customers who feel good about their idea, who are passionate about it, and who are willing to really work hard to beat out the competition. And we think that a hardworking team is better than the right idea. So if you've got a team of people who are really hardworking, who are passionate about solving a specific type of problem, it can be okay that there's competition in the market, or even okay that if you're out having coffee or if you're at a networking event that you talk about what your idea is. Because if you're going to work hard and constantly work like everyone's trying to take it away from you, then you're probably going to do a really good job with your business. And because that's our market and that's the type of person and type of company that we're looking for, we're really going to be thrown off a little bit if the first question in a conversation with a new product is to sign an NDA. There are exceptions to that rule. There's companies who, for example, have researchers on staff, and they are going through a patent process, and they've got patents pending, but they're not finished with those patents, or they're a large company with a lot of researchers and a large technical team, and they want to make sure that a specific concept or a specific process is protected. And that's obviously a good case to sign an NDA. So that's how we look at every project and our considerations when someone brings an NDA to us. The second consideration is really turning the tables and thinking about how a individual or a business, why they might ask a company to sign an NDA. And it really comes down to they think they have a good idea, they're passionate about it, and they want it to be protected. If it's a business that has a research team and a strong technical team, and they know that they've got trademarks pending and patents pending, and they've been advised by their legal team to protect their ideas, it's very straightforward. They're going to have their legal team draft an NDA that's very specific to their process, very specific to their product, and they're going to need to protect that with anybody that they talk to just to make sure that their idea is protected. For a company, whether existing or new, that is creating a new product and building it from the ground up and just having initial conversations, they want to protect their ideas too, and they certainly don't want to broadcast how they're going to be unique, how they're going to be different, and how they're going to stand out. But they also have to realize that they're going to interact and talk to a lot of different people. They may be interacting with different investors, they may be interacting with development firms like ours, and they may be interacting with just mentors and advisors and people at coffee shops. And it's a really huge barrier when the first question is, can you sign my NDA and then we'll get together and get coffee? You're already asking people for favors. You're asking for their ideas, their knowledge, their feedback. And when you meet with them and you put out there first that I need you to sign a legally binding document saying that you aren't going to talk about any aspect of my idea, that's really off-putting. Especially if you're an advisor or a consultant, you're likely talking to a lot of companies in the same industry, in the same space, and you may have heard very similar ideas before you even talk to them, and after you've signed the NDA, you've immediately broken it. So those companies are figuring out the fine line between how do I protect my idea and then how do I be reasonable with my ask. The last part, or the third consideration, is really what are questions that you should ask going into this process. And I think one important thing, whether again it's a consulting company or legal advice or other mentors in your community, is if you're concerned about an NDA and you're really concerned about protecting an idea, ask questions. If you reach out to somebody and ask them to sign an NDA and they tell you no, ask why. Why wouldn't you sign an NDA? Why do you think that it was inappropriate for me to ask that? And ask questions about your specific situation, because I think there's a lot to be gained by understanding the processes that companies have in place, the understanding when they draw the line at I should sign an NDA, when they draw the line at this is probably not the right time in the conversation to have asked for that. So we're a big believer in always being transparent and always being available to answer questions and to give really honest feedback on why we do things a certain way. And we encourage everybody, whether it's with us or someone else, to always just ask if they don't understand a certain part of the process or if something confuses them. We're by no means a legal team, and so we don't have any legal staff on our team. But NDAs are a big part of talking to technology companies and starting new products. And it's a question that we get once every few days, is a question about NDAs, whether we think it's necessary for them to sign it, And frankly, we're not qualified to answer that question. Anytime that you're asking for my specific product, do I think that I need an NDA, that's really on the company to do research on their own to figure out if that's something they think that they need to do, or if in doubt, always just reaching out to their legal staff and saying, is this something that I need? But it's also a really strategic move about when you ask people to sign NDAs, because it can be a really off-putting process, and it can also be something that just adds no value to you as a business. Because if you're asking for an NDA at the wrong part of the process, it can really hurt you from reaching out to the right people, like potential angel investors, advisors, and consultants. So really today what we wanted to do was just give you an overview on something that we're hearing really frequently, something that we're constantly getting questions about, and to provide some insight on our thoughts on that issue and how we handle it as a company, those three considerations. I appreciate you tuning in to App Strategy with MotionMobs, and I'll talk to you next week.